So here we got the first video of 2020, and it's just going to be a quick basic one. I kind of wanted to show the quick little process that's required if you're going from 2.79 to 2.8, which is basically what I did. And it's just two simple little things. I'm not going to go into heavy detail, but mainly just kind of showing you what happens when you bring a 2.79 scene file in, a Blender file in, and what happens with the collections for one, and also what happens with materials. So you'll notice here we have a bunch of collections here. It pretty much just takes all the layers that were in 2.79 and previous versions and puts them into collections. So what you'll see is basically 1 through 20 on these collections, and they're not labeled other than 1 through 20, and you also notice they're not all visible. You really only see the only ones that'll be shown are the ones that were selected when you last saved, the layers that were visible when you last saved in 2.79. So if you go into 2.79 and you hit the tilde key and you make it show all layers are visible and then you hit save, technically you can bypass this step, but it's very rare that you do that or I do that, so you get stuck with having multiple collections that are hidden. So what we want to do is you select them all, just shift select to have all of them selected, and if you choose one, oh yeah, sorry, my mistake. So what you want to do is you select all, then you right click, you want to do the visibility, you want to disable in viewports. That's your first step. It's kind of a two-step process. So once it's disabled, you see now they're all hidden. So then you want to right click again, any of them's fine. Visibility, and enable in viewports. Give it a second because it's gonna have to load all the freaking LiDAR data and everything. It's gonna show everything in scene. So if your machine's not really that powerful, it may kind of bog you down a little bit. So now that they're all enabled, you'll see they're all white. And now I just like to control it with the little eyeball. So I just turn them all off, and then I just turn them on as I need them. Don't mind this track. This is actually one from NASCAR Racing 2003. I was just curious of how accurate it was. Not very, as I suspected, but anyway, that's why you see a bunch of objects here. It also can help for a little bit of reference later on, um, but I was just more of a curiosity than anything else. So, but we don't care about that right now. So then I just come in here and I'll name my collections, you know, something. This one's, I don't know, walls, spawn objects. So you can see it's much better laid out than 2.79 if you're coming from that. Before with the layers, you kind of had to select one to see even what was in it. So you had to load it. Oh, it's not what one I wanted and go back. After a while, you kind of could memorize it, but then if you come back to a file later on, you're like to an old project or something, you're kind of like, poking in the dark. You have no idea what you got going on. So now it's much better laid out as far as that goes. So the second thing that we got to deal with when we're coming from 2.7 on is materials. Oh, I'm in the wrong. This is again. I know a quick thing here. A side thing is sometimes this stuff up here isn't. If it comes over from 2.79, it won't have everything correct. So you just might have to do general, add a workspace, general, and modeling, and you'll get back the proper buttons. I don't know another way to get those back, but that's just the basics of getting. I don't know why my mouse cursor is. Oh, I'm in edit mode. That's why. If you can see when we went back to default, the buttons it kind of gets a little wonky. Sometimes if you load a 2.79 into 2.8, if you make a point to uncheck load UI, it might avoid that. But you may have to create a new modeling scene, and you may just want to go and delete these. So you don't really you can obviously make all the new ones that 2.8 supports, but So we're in modeling, and we'll go to textures, and you'll see that no textures show. My keys are a little different on this one down here, so I'm struggling. But anyway, um, you'll see the road, but we're in, view shading, but it's not showing any textures. It's just showing just like it is in regular shading view. Um, so we want to come over here to the materials, and we want to choose use nodes. And under base color, we want to select a little dot here and do image texture. And then we want to choose this button here and choose our texture. You can see none of them are assigned with the little 0 next to it. So there we go. So now it'll at least show that texture. So we'll go to the next one. This is the concrete one. Again, use nodes, base color, image texture, concrete box was that particular texture. So you have to do that through all your materials when you're coming over from 2.79. If you're new to 2.78, you may, or if you've already messed with materials 2.78, you may already, 2. Sorry, if you already messed with materials in 2.8, you will already know that. But if you're fresh coming from 2.79, it's just something you have to be aware of, that you'll have to do that to all your previous materials. You can play with these settings all you want. Same as I mentioned in other videos. None of this really matters for the Assetto Corsa and the editor. All that really matters is the material name. So technically, if you brought this into the scene and exported it out without doing any of this, it would still look fine in the editor as long as your persistence file was still in place, because the names of concrete and road or whatever your names are the same and will load the settings appropriately. So it's really only for viewing purposes inside of Blender. Um, so the second thing with materials is with alpha transparency. It's a little bit different when it comes to 2.8 and 2.79. You could just click transparency in the material and it would just work. But that's not the case anymore. So we're going to jump over to the Road America project that I got here. And we are going to have trees visible. Yeah, they're visible. They're just, yeah, they are. So we got trees here, and you see they're looking proper now. We're going to go over to the shading menu. Again, if you brought over 2.79, you may just want to clean this up and put the basic one in here. I just put the bare minimum ones that I usually use. But when you come to shading, you'll get the nodes view, which is basically, when you click use nodes, it turns this on basically in the background. So when you put it in shading mode, you get to see those nodes and you can edit them directly. So the quick and easy way to get your alpha stuff to show is to take your texture. When you do all the stuff we did before, it automatically create this for you, but it won't have this alpha line, and you can see what happened there. It just turns the black edges. It's not transparent anymore on that one material. So you want to take this alpha and connect it to the other alpha on the actual material. But that's part of it. Let me go back to the material and we'll scroll down here, and this will be on opaque by default. So you do connect the alphas, come over here, and the blend mode must be on one of the alphas. I've been using alpha hashed. It seems to work fine. And also, I think backface culling you'll want on. You can see what happens there. That doesn't seem to make any difference. But yeah, that's the main thing you want to have on, so you can see your alpha transparency. So those are the main kind of niggles that I had to deal with when I first brought my scene over from 2.79. You can see here I've kind of better organized all my layers, or all my collections, sorry. And you can see everything's kind of like kind of laid out, and you can kind of easier see what you're going to be clicking on, what's going to be shown, um, stuff like that. It just makes life a lot easier. I'm a huge fan of of the collection system over the old layer system. But also do remember this is kind of a one-way street to a degree. Once you save in the 2.8 format, 2.79 will not be a fan of opening that file. You can append. You can go into 2.79, hit append, and then go to the object directly of a 2.8 file. And I've had good luck bringing stuff backwards if needed. But just be aware you're going to want to probably save a duplicate file, uh, and that way you can go back if you have to or want to or whatever. Just be aware that it's a little bit of a one-way street. There are ways backwards, but it's not the easiest. So that'll pretty much wrap it up for this little video. And I'm gonna head into making a road mesh and making a detailed um, surface detail into your track mesh. That'll be our next. I got a little sample projects lined up for that, and I'll get started on that in a few minutes.